episode. So as you can see, I've got Troy here with me, and just thought we'd have a nice relaxed chat about some training tips that I think will benefit everyone. You ready to kick it off, brother?
Yeah, buddy.
All right, let's go, guys. On the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the Better Body Academy podcast. This is the podcast that you come to when you are sick of the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. We got double trouble this morning with Coach Troy T-Mac McClellan. Good morning, son. How are you?
Good morning, mate. Good morning, everybody. I am well on this Saturday morning here in Australia.
Is it you got some sun there, brother, or what?
Yeah, sun sort of. It's the last couple of days. It's been a bit of both. Sun popping through, and then rain, and then it's a weird one.
All good shit. I use Nick Friend in our academy to be my weather forecaster based on his photos, and that's the only way I find what's going on. Yeah. Well, guys, welcome to another podcast episode. So we decided to come on to the episode today, and I said to Troy yesterday in a conversation, I said, "Hey, Troy, give me 5 or 6 or 7 things that you really wish people got a little bit more about training." And then I said, wow, those things are really, really simple and really, really good. So let's turn this into a podcast and have a discussion about it. So the answers, Troy, when I looked back through your answers, there was nothing there that I was kind of like, oh, wow, yeah, you're right. And it made me think a lot of the time for most of us, we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught, because what happens is over time, we just forget things. And when we were at the retreat just recently for our girls, even just a little tweak that you made to my dumbbell press was like, I know that, but I completely forgot it. And it changed the way that it actually targeted my chest. And so I think that's a really nice inroad to the 6 things we're going to talk about today. So let's get into number 1. You really wish that people understood form. Okay, so talk to us about form.
Yeah, so form, that I've put that first because that is paramount in if you want growth, like for the muscle to work to its fullest, it has to be in correct form to start with, because if it's not in form, then you're just using wasted energy, because you're going to be incorporating muscles that you shouldn't be. There's the risk of injury. And then on top of that is you're creating a bad habit without knowing it. And then you're just going to be constantly going. That's usually when people will come through and go, I've been doing this for ages and nothing's changing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It comes back to usually form.
A lot of people say that they kind of come to us at the start of their journey and they're like, oh my God, I've never been in a gym before. I've never lifted weights before. So I'm going to be terrible at this and I'm not a good candidate. But my experience is actually that oftentimes they're the perfect candidate because they haven't created too many bad habits, right?
Yeah.
How often did you see this when you were taking in-person clients where you're like, okay, this person's got like a good body, but they've got to the point where everything's going to plateau because of the mechanics of how they're actually lifting?
Yeah, I'd see that a lot. With exactly like what you just said, like when you're dealing with someone that hasn't been into a gym, they're your most easier clients to deal with because they haven't been molded in a way that is influenced by other things. You can just focus on the actual one thing that you need to do. And for so many people coming up and they're just like, I can't push past this. I'm constantly getting injured or anything like that. And as soon as I just have a look at what they do, and you just small little tweaks, and you could just see it, just like a light bulb, just go, oh shit, is that how it's supposed to feel? And then that's when you end up seeing the growth, because we're using the muscle to actually how it should be done with those exercises.
And it doesn't seem like to an average person who hasn't come from a gym background, it's like, well, what's really the difference between doing a bicep a bicep curl with strict kind of pinned elbows versus letting them throw around a bit? And what's the actual difference? The best way that I could possibly explain it is using the degrees to which, if a ship was out 2, 3, 5 degrees at destination, by the time that ship gets to where it's trying to sail to, it's hundreds of miles out just because of a few degrees difference at the origin. And it's the same with a lot of people. What ends up happening the best example that I could see of this, Troy, was, when we were growing up, I was very aware of a number of, young fellas that got into anabolic steroids, and they got really strong, but they got strong with bad form. So that is similar to my thinking. Well, if you have a really car that has a bunch of and I'm terrible at cars, but has a bunch of add-ons and they're bolted on and it's been souped up, but the actual body doesn't support that type of motion or that amount of velocity, then you're going to have problems. What do you think's the biggest driver of why people get form wrong? Do you think it's knowledge, or is it ego?
I think it's a bit of both, because a lot of people, they don't exactly know how the exercise is performed. They might be watching someone else that's doing it, that they think, they're doing it right, so I'm going to match them, but they might be doing it wrong, and it's just the knowledge, they don't know that. But I think the biggest one is ego, because they'll see someone else in the gym, or they'll see one of their friends, and they're like, they're throwing around 50-kilo dumbbells and I'm only here on my 10s. I need to match that person, so I'm going to go up. But when you do that without learning, then that's when you compromise your form. And yes, you might be able to lift it, but you're not going to get the benefit from it.
And if you're wanting to change your body, it's not just about moving the weight from A to B. It's about actually contracting the muscle. Yeah. And we might end up going over that point. But I think if you're a newbie to the gym, you shouldn't be thinking of this as let me just see if I can grunt this weight from here to here. No, actually, a better thought process, and I know that you're going to talk about mind-muscle connection, is really just going to be, actually, can I feel this where I'm meant to feel it? So let's hold off that. Let's go to number 2. You wish people understood more about the power of consistency over intensity. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So the thing with that is training, and when people are in transformation, it's for the rest of your life, because even when we get older, we still need to get up out of the chair. We still need to move. We still need to pick things up. We still got to do all that. And with a lot of the knowledge that's coming out now, a lot of people are starting to realize how important resistance training is for building that muscle, to keep that muscle on our body, because it is that thing of, if you don't use it, you will lose it. That's exactly what happens with muscle. And when it comes to consistency over the intensity, most people will go in there and they're just all in. I'm going 6 days. I'm going 7 days. Sustainably, you won't be able to keep that up for the rest of your life. So they usually might come in and they'll go 6 days over 3 months. Yes, they might look good, or they might sort of change, but then they will start to break down or burn out, and then you don't see them for a couple of months, and then that's when things start to pack back on, and then you're going through this massive yo-yo. So the consistency over the intensity is doing it in a more sustainable way that is going to be right for you for the rest of your life. So instead of going that 6 or 7 days, I would break it down to 3 to 4, having those rest days in between, because that's something that you could do for the rest of your life. The intensity is still going to be there, but I'm only going to be doing it that 3 to 4. I'm still going to get growth. I'm still going to do everything like that. the benefit of going that 6 days over those 4 days is there's not much science that's actually showing that that extra growth is going to, put you all the way up here, then down here kind of thing. There's maybe only a minimal.
Yeah,
sort of thing.
my understanding actually is that from the science, that you might know it better, but my understanding is actually that it might actually be detracting for most people because there's a bunch of junk volume that comes in, and it's like you would be better to actually be rested and recovered and putting that intensity into your next session. Exactly. So I think consistency and intensity definitely go hand in hand, because you don't want to be going into the gym and just going through the motions, but to try to be consistent and intense and train fucking 6 days a week, it's just, you're just going to end up burning out.
And you've got life as well, so it's like the thing that, like, when it comes to the consistency is when, people are they're chasing that perfection. So like that to me is like the wrong sort of thing, is to chase sort of perfection. It should be more about chasing the progress.
I wonder how many of our clients that are listening here, and there's about 20 people across the different platforms. I'm wondering how many of you still have in your mind that if there's no pain, there's no gain. And I will 100% put my hand up and say, I used to believe that. And the reason I believed that, because my dad passed it on to me. He's a Maltese immigrant that's come from a tough background, and he simply passed me this idea that if you don't basically kill yourself in the process, you will not get ahead. It's just like, it's totally inefficient. It's totally inefficient. And I think if you need permission to say, hey, you know what, I might need an extra day off, or I might need to back off my intensity because I am so sore all the time, well, then you just got granted permission. Let's go to the next one, brother. Let's talk about the mind-muscle connection. I think it's a cliche, but what don't people get or understand, or what would you like them to understand more?
Yeah, so this is a big one. So it's like, we've gone through you've got your form right. You're consistently working that muscle. Now it's really about getting the purpose and the intention of when you are in there doing the work. So to get the most out of our muscle and to get the benefit for what you want, because like I talked about at the start, like with this wasted energy, most people, they'll go into the gym, they'll do their session, they'll leave, they'll be happy, like I just done my session. But if they haven't had that full connection with your muscles to actually get the contractions, then you're just going through the motions, and you're just wasting that energy and not actually getting the building of the actual muscle that needs to happen. Because most people go in there, they just go through the motions, they just push it out. And then they move on to the next thing, and then they're like, yeah, that was a good workout. But if we measured their muscle to that actual exercise, probably wasn't working, and they've incorporated other things. And that's where making that you're really thinking about what you're doing. Learning is so important when it comes to training. Understand what you're doing. You talked about it the other days, doing a reverse engineering of the exercise. So that's a good way of doing it when you're doing any exercise, is why am I doing this exercise? What is working the most? When you've got correct form, you'll start to feel exactly what needs to happen. So if I'm doing, say, a chest press, then I know that I'm actually really need to squeeze. So I'm going to really concentrate on that contraction and then the actual stretch in the muscle. Because what's actually happening is we need to have a loaded stretch, which will create those tears in those fibers, and then our body will start to go, hang on, I need extra support here. So we're going to start to build extra fibers, and that's where growth comes if we are doing everything else right. So that mind and muscle connection is so important to get the most benefit from it, because what's the point of going in and just training for an hour and then coming out and you actually haven't really benefited from what you've just done. It's just it's silly to me.
I've just had a thought. Everyone knows how to train. Well, everyone knows the feeling of sore legs, right?
Yeah.
So I've just had a thought. I wonder how many people have got great mind-muscle connection in their lower body, but terrible mind-muscle connection in their upper body. And the reason I'm asking that question is if you're doing, say, a squat or a leg extension or a leg press, you know consciously what that's, even if you're a beginner, you know what that's meant to be working, right? Like you're not sitting there doing a leg press thinking, this is for my lower back. You know that it's meant to be a leg exercise. But when it comes to, I think, particularly training back and training chest, those two specific areas, it's like the root cause or the root thing for me is that if you can't squeeze that set of muscles, even when you don't have any weight applied, if you can't sit in your chair and squeeze your chest or squeeze your lats or squeeze your back, then it's going to be pretty hard to do it in the gym once you add weight to it, because all the weight's doing is making the squeeze just exacerbated or more difficult, right?
Yeah.
So a good question to ask if you are listening to this right now, as you're sitting here listening or making your cup of coffee or whatever you're doing, can you independently squeeze your chest? And I don't mean like going like this. I mean, can you actually just contract your chest muscles? Can you contract your lat muscles, your back muscles? Because what's going to happen is if you can do it here, when you add weight to it in the gym, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah.
You mentioned you've got to think, you've got to stay thinking. And I think that's part of it, right? Is we're training in the morning and we're like just waking up and it's before work, or we're training in the afternoon and we're so tired from work that it's easy to just kind of lapse in concentration and forget what you're actually doing.
Yeah, most people are just going through the motions. And a lot of times they just want to get in there and get it over and done with.
Which is fair.
And that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you can break it down to go, I'm only doing 3 exercises today. It is what it is. But you need to have that to be intentional of going, I'm going to do these 3, but I'm going to do it the best of my ability, instead of just going through the motions, because we want to get the muscle working as much as it can.
Have you ever taught a pre-lift routine? I don't mean at the start of the workout. I mean at the start of the set. Something like a framework that a person can work through, such as, okay, take a couple of deep breaths. What am I trying to work here?
Yeah.
How am I going to start this movement off?
Yeah. So that's where warm-ups come in as well. So your warm-up, what it's about waking up the muscle, getting a little bit of blood to that muscle. So that's where the real thinking needs to start.
Priming it, so it's ready to do that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. So you're priming the muscle, but you're also priming your brain to go, because our central nervous system is what clicks this off. So if we're not starting it here, then it's not going to work here.
Yeah.
So we need to start doing that as well. We're priming the muscle by putting a little bit of load under it, but then I'm also priming it by really thinking about what I'm doing. So when I go in to do, say, my working sets, as soon as I go to do my setup, I get my form in right, and then I'm just constantly thinking about the muscle that I should be working. So I'm just like chest. That's where a lot of times touch can be a good thing.
Yes. When you're training with a trainer or a partner.
So it's like, I might set myself up. If I'm doing, say, chest press, I might set up, but before I hit the bar, I might actually just start touching, because the touch feel thing is it can really get a better connection, because you're basically telling your nervous system to go, here, I'm working here.
Yeah. And I know this works because recently when I was home with my dad and doing a couple of workouts with him, he was doing things like rows and just you could tell the tension was just all in his arm. When we just said, hey man, loosen up your grip a little bit and let's think about squeezing your shoulders back. He's like, oh, what the hell? Oh, I can't lift as much. Can you put the weight down? And then you're like, bingo, he's just made the connection with his mind to his muscle.
Yeah.
Guys, sorry.
And I just was going to say, that's like when I was training a lot of people face to face, that was a thing where I would say to them, so I'd see them do the movement, form was good, everything like that, and then I would say, what are you working here? Like, where are you feeling it? And then they would come back to me, like, and it's especially with back, they'll go, oh, I'm feeling like this is like arms. I'm going, my arms. And then I'll be like, okay. So then we can go through the movement. And then, because I'll go, is this a back movement or an arm movement? And then they'll, back. And then you tweak their brain. You're just tweaking their brain to go, oh, yeah, okay. I've got to move my back now, not just focus on my arms.
I love this. So I love this so much. This might be a bit nerdy for you guys. I don't know. But if you take on the lessons that you're learning here, guys, I am sure you're going to start to see better progress. So let's talk about progressive overload. We have covered this a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but what's the key message that people need to take out of this?
So progressive overload is, a lot of people, they will think it's, I've got to do massive amount of weight. I've got to do new and shiny things. I think that's the biggest one, is people don't stick to building that foundation before moving on to something else. And what we're doing is we want to progressively move up each step as it comes. It's like when you walk up a set of stairs, if you take each step as it comes, it's a lot safer. You're not going to really fall down. But if you miss a couple of steps to try and get there quicker, the risk of slip is a lot greater. So if we just take each step as it comes, that's going to create that more progressive overload. So when we talk about progressive overload, it might only be small little things, by just slightly adding a little bit more weight to correlate with the rep that you're doing, because it might become easier. So what we're putting a little bit more loaded tension on it, making sure that our rest periods are where they need to be. So then we're getting the most out of our muscle, making sure that our volume of how much we're doing, because say we've been doing 2 sets, we might go, okay, I'm going to do 3 sets now. That's a slight sort of increase in that progressive overload. So it's when we say progressive overload, is we're just putting a little bit more loaded tension on the muscle for either like reps or time or something like that. But
so let's talk about
how go to that extreme.
Let's talk about how, like, from a client perspective, how to administer your own progressive overload schedule.
Yeah.
We would probably not want clients to all of a sudden start determining that they're going to massively increase the rep count, all of a sudden start adding on sets. What we'd like to see, or hope that you can trust yourself to slowly do, is to slowly put the weights up. Maybe slowly nudge. The way that I would think for the average person that you should see this is, if you could get to your target rep range at a certain weight, and then you start to get, over the reps that you need to do, and you start to go, well, I'm starting to get 12, 13, 14 when I'm meant to be getting 10, I can put the weight up a little bit. Now I'm going to spend some time at that weight, because I'm going to not be able to lift 13 repetitions again. So I'm going to need to spend some time building the reps back up. Then I'm going to put the weight back up. Then I'm going to put the reps back up. Then I'm going to put the weight back up. So it's fine balance between reps and weights going up over time. And then when you get a bit more advanced, we will be able to add sets, add more exercises, increase or slow down your rest periods, add intensity techniques like drop sets and the like. But for the average person, it's just not necessary. We can just,
and that's because we need to build the foundation.
Correct.
And that's what when we're prescribing programs, there is a science to growth in the muscle and having it for a prolonged amount of time, and you've got to go through those steps. But a lot of people, because they want it now, they want it, they want it tomorrow, or they want it yesterday. So they think, okay, I'm starting to master this, so I can just I need that new shiny thing because I need it to seem like I'm actually moving on. But you gotta break it down into the thing that you're doing, because like what you said at the start, Jace, the basics is what we need to really get great at, because they're the foundation. If a good analogy of what I say to a lot of people is when you're building a house, you got to pour that concrete slab to have a really good foundation. And if you aren't putting that structural steel in, then over time, cracks will come. And then whatever you build on top is going to be just ready to go. So by having the right sort of progression in getting the basics right and then just slowly adding to that, we're adding extra structural steel down. So that foundation is going to be able to hold, a skyscraper. Like
100%.
That's what we're building.
That's when you go into the gym and you see like, a person and they walk into the gym and the first thing they do is like a forearm curl on a bench, and you're just like, dude, that is just so fucking unimportant. It's not even funny, right? We've got to get really strong in the major muscles of our body. Let's focus on the stuff that's actually going to give us the biggest bang for buck. We've got
it's usually the boring stuff.
It's the boring
stuff.
Most
people like that, they're going in, they want to like, I want people to see me do this, and you're like, just do it for yourself. Like,
yeah. Let's talk about number 5, rest and recovery. What do you want people to know about this?
This is really, really important. If you want to get to the goal or the transformation that you want, this is where growth happens. So when we're in the rest and recovery stage, that's when our muscles are at most repairing themselves and getting them prepared for the next thing, because it doesn't know what we're doing, but our mind is going, hang on, we get all this loaded tension on when we're doing this exercise. I don't want to break down, so I'm going to add some more fibers there to help, because last time we did it, it knows how much strength it needs, so it'll start to build that for you, and that comes back to the next one that we're going to talk about. But that's where it becomes so important, because when we're breaking down the muscle and when we're training and we create those fibers, if we don't give it enough time to heal and have that growth, and it's not back to that when we go and do it again, then if we've sort of ripped and then we've only come back again and then we go too early, then all we're doing is just going to keep breaking down that muscle without actually having the other side of it, of the growth. And that's what we were talking about, like with the intensity, is there is a graph that, so you will peak if you have adequate rest. The peaks will go like this, and you'll go up like that. But if you don't have adequate rest, your peaks will still be coming up.
Right, but you're trending downwards.
You're actually tracked downwards.
Right.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
So because the healing side.
Can we answer the question? If like how that usually is talked about, just to make it practical from our clients, will be, should I train again today? I'm still sore. Like, how do you answer that question?
So a good sort of way of thinking about it is, usually you can go, like most people will go like 2 to 1. So you can go train 2 days, have a rest day, train 2 days, have a rest day, train 2 days, have a rest day. So you can sort of work it like that. But over like a week, I would be trying to get 2 rest days, at least 1 full-on rest day, but 2 over that sort of 7 period. How you sort of want to break that up is up to you on life. Like you could train 3 days in a row, that's fine, and then have a rest day. But it's making sure that you have planned rest days into your workout.
So is there any numbers out there that might say something like, if you're 80% recovered or if you're 70% recovered, and of course that's going to be like a bias measure, a subjective measurement, but has there been anything that sort of says, well, you know, I'm 90% back to, in terms of what I feel in terms of soreness, I'm good to go again? Or is that just too hard to?
It's for people to metric that themselves. It's how am I feeling, because life comes into it too. Like if your sleep hasn't been the best, or if your something's just stressed you, it can take a lot of your energy. So you could feel that you're not up 100%, but your muscles might be. So at most of the time, listen to your body. So this is where like getting in tune with your body is so important. And that's just basically listening to it, like understanding, feeling. And it takes a bit of time, because if you haven't done it, you know, you aren't used to it.
Of course.
But actually listening to your body, if your body is crying out, just like, and you're constantly sore and everything like that, it might be saying like, I need to just take a week off. So many people come to me and they're like, it feels like I'm getting weaker. And I'm like, well, what have you been doing? They're like, oh, I've been training every day. I'm like, well, if you're getting weaker, it means that your body's saying, I can't keep doing this. Can you give me a rest?
Guys, did you hear that? Like listen up to what you just heard. If you're getting progressively weaker, this might just be a signal that you need to back off the intensity a little bit. You need to take a little bit of a break. And on that note, I think, Troy, one of the things that you mentioned there about having a day off, but also part of rest, and we'll talk about nutrition finally, but part of rest means you've actually got to go to sleep. Whether your primary goal is to lose fat, build muscle, and a combination of the two, you're going to make this infinitely hard, almost impossible, if you're not sleeping.
Yeah.
You're also going to make recovery 20-fold harder if you're not sleeping. And that's because of the hormonal component of this. The basically being able to repair your body is going to be more worried about trying to repair your deprived brain than it is about your torn bicep. So you've got to make sure you sleep.
Regulation. And that just the other thing I'll say on that, just so when it comes to rest, it doesn't mean that you have to just do nothing. If you're one where you're like, no, I need to be doing something, then you can plan it in where you might just do mobility, or so it's just you're still doing a workout, but you've just planned in, I'm going to deload massively, or I'm going to have a full deload week. I'm going to lessen the weight. I'm just focused on form, and I'm going to just focus on a bit of functionality. That could be a rest as well.
Yeah, I love that. All right, let's get to the final one. You wish people understood a bit more about nutrition.
Yeah.
How does that relate to progress in the gym?
So our muscles and what we're doing to it, with ripping those fibers, everything like that. The only way for that to get the growth and everything like that comes back to the nutrients that it's actually getting. If it's not getting the right nutrients that it needs, then it can't send everything that it needs to help with the repair, or to have the extra growth that it needs to add extra fibers and things like that. So making sure that our protein is really at its adequate level, then our muscles can sit there and work better, because it's we need to feed our muscles for them to work. So a good thing is like, muscle is built in the gym. That's when we're ripping the fibers, but it's fed in the kitchen. So we feed the muscle in the kitchen to be able to be built in the gym.
and it needs time for that to stick, right? Which means if you keep going back in there, it's like we're so desperate to erode away whatever pain we feel in our life associated with being weak or being skinny or being overweight. We're like, I need to train. You'd be far better to just half the volume, get back to 3 days a week, and train for the next 50 years. And if you can do that within the next 2, you will be significantly different. You had a little bonus that you wanted to kind of talk about to bring this together.
Yeah. So those sort of 6 things are the basics of what you need for you to have the right benefit and intention and everything like that. To circle it all in, it's basically like you've put all this into a bag. That bag is having a right plan. You got to plan things out. You got to have an intention of why you're doing it. So having a program to follow, that's one way of doing it. Like planning out your rest days, planning out your week. Say, okay, I'm going to train Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm going to rest on these days. On the rest days, I might do these. The biggest like wasted energy that I see for a lot of people is they will go to the gym, but they just go in and just wing it. They're just like, oh, I'm just going to go do this. I'm going to go do that. And it's like, well, what have you done? You went and did one back thing, and then you went and did all this other stuff, and you go, well, what's the actual purpose of so having a plan, and could be like, it's very simple that you can do. You just plan out your things. You go, okay, I'm going to the gym today. What am I doing? I'm working this, and this. So when you go in there, you're not having to really think about it too much because you've already set a plan for yourself. When it comes to nutrition, you've got a plan of what you need to do to feed the muscles. When you have your rest days, you've planned that out. If we don't have that plan, then growth can't happen as much as what it wants because you're just winging it.
And if you think about like the major reasons that people quit, it's because I'm investing time and I'm not getting a return. Frankly, I would quit as well if I was using time but not getting a return. Like, I would quit as well. Let me ask you a question, guys. And as we bring this podcast to a close, and if you're still listening here, like we've covered a fair bit, and it's been a fairly deep podcast, but if you were seeing gradual improvements in your strength over the course of the next 6 to 12 months, if you were seeing gradual changes very slowly to your body, if you were getting that feedback, would that keep you motivated? The reality is that most of us don't have a plan. So it starts with a plan. So we therefore don't see progress. We're also not tracking. So we might actually be missing progress, but we don't know it because we're not tracking it. And therefore we've got nothing to really motivate us and be proud and celebrate our progress because we have no way of seeing it. So then we kind of give up and go, it's not really my thing, the gym. I would be in the same position if I didn't have that feedback cycle. So we've got plenty of comments coming in here. If you are new to BBA, just like we build your program with the intention of getting you to nudge closer to the goal that you've set based on what you've supplied to us around what you want. Trust the plan. And we've got enough examples in this academy of guys and girls that have trusted the plan, fast forwarded 6 to 12 months, and they look completely different. And at the root of it is because they did what works. If you do what works,
they did the boring stuff. They did the basics.
To do the boring batshit stuff that's like...
They keep trying to find that new shiny thing. Build that foundation, and then we can build whatever we want on top of it.
Guys, we're going to leave it there. this has been the Better Body Academy podcast coming to you on the first day of the weekend. Hopefully you got something out of this. And if you haven't already, we are live across all of the podcast players. You can go there and find nearly 400 episodes. Troy, thanks for coming on the podcast today, brother. We'll see you guys in the next episode. All right, team, we are done. Now, does anyone have any questions before we rock and roll out? Ask a direct question. Don't sit on your question. We've still got like 20 people across our groups watching on live. So is there anything you guys want to ask specifically? Xanth says, great information. Love the gym. Can't wait to get back when I'm back in Sydney tomorrow. 100%. It's funny how like people go from not liking it to just like becoming addicted, right? Yeah. Caroline Meredith, we've got you, girl. Haley says, this has been so helpful and I've taken so much out of it. Perfect timing as I start my first week training sessions this week. So good. And if you are in Better Body Academy, what I'd really suggest you do, if you feel just a little bit kind of on the fence with confidence in the gym, if you go into your app and you go into the guides section of your app and you go to base workshops in your app, workshop 8 is literally an hour with me in the gym showing you the basics, not just talking about it like we have here. And so that means really trying to break down the gym intimidation that you probably feel. You can also find it in our Facebook group under the guides section. It's in the second guide and you will see it there, ready to go. Thanks, Ronnie. Thanks for coming in. G'day, Grant. I hope you're well, brother. Maxie says this podcast is fire. Okay, team, so do we have any questions? We've got Carl saying this has been a good reminder to focus on what I'm doing rather than thinking about the next job you had to do. The hardest part about self-awareness is remembering to stay aware. We automate our behaviors, don't we? And we just go into like robot mode and then we go, okay, cool, that's the workout done.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard.
We're always looking for that next thing to go, okay, how can I get this better? How can I do that? And it's like, just become great at that one thing. And then naturally the next stage is going to come.
Lisa Coyle says, I still find this a bit of a block for me, but this has helped to break it down. Yeah, Lisa, and I get it. I think that you're just someone who's willing to vocalize it and be honest. It's a block for so many people. And when you think about why it's a block, it's because, we talk about fear of failure. I just like to reframe fear of failure in layman's terms. You don't want to look like a dick in front of people, right? So either go with a friend or you can get, so most gyms have what's called a Cert 3 fitness instructor. Okay, a Cert 3 fitness instructor hasn't necessarily got their Cert 4, which calls them a personal trainer, but a Cert 3 fitness instructor is typically the qualification that a person needs to work in a gym, and so they will be assigned people to do introductions. So what you could do is you could ask, do you guys have like a Cert 3 person that can just give me a bit of an introductory session? And realistically, all we need to get familiar with is like, where are the machines? What's a kind of layout? And at the start, you can stick to machine-based stuff, which is pretty hard to mess up. Form tends to disintegrate on like when you're doing free weights, right? Because you're responsible for your own stability. But when you're using machine-based weights, you can still get the form wrong, but the stability is provided for you by the machine and it can only operate in a certain range of motion.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. That fear of failure, that's like one of the big issues for a lot of people to go into the gym. And but to me, how I see that is if you're fearing failure, you're fearing learning, because failure is learning. So is when you can't grow unless you've just done something not fully right, but you learn from that to go, oh, hang on, that didn't work. How do I get that better?
Yeah.
And then you get that better. It's
Yeah.
when we are not learning from that failure is when we start going the other way. So it shouldn't be the fear of failures. We need to be embracing that learning. Failure is going to happen. Failure happens all the time.
Yep. It's part of the success process. All right, team. Well, no further questions. Meredith, I'm excited to go to the gym, not dreading it. I have a much understanding of the why. That's so good. Well, if that's the case, then doing the podcast was worthwhile doing. All right, team. Well, you guys go and have an absolutely beautiful weekend. We'll see you on the flip. We appreciate you. And thanks again, Troy, for coming in, brother.